Hi everybody, my name is Jay Pantone and I am your professor for Math 1450 this semester, Calc 1. This is the first video of the course, and you can tell from the fact that you're watching this video probably that the lectures in this course are going to be asynchronous, meaning they will be recorded ahead of time by me and posted online for you to watch. We'll talk more about that later, but in this video I want to go quickly over the syllabus and talk about some of the important parts and talk about the structure of the class. So let's start with some of my contact information. Here's my name and my office. My office is in Cudahy Hall, room 307. Now, because of the nature of the course, you probably won't ever need to come to my office because we'll have virtual office hours and the lectures will be delivered asynchronously like this. My email is here. Now, one important note, some of the tools that we'll use in this course, like D2L or Wiley+, have their own email system. But a lot of times I don't get notifications about those emails. So if you want to make sure that I get your email and can reply as quickly as possible, please email me directly, not through D2L. So just email me directly at that email address. Our course website is at this URL, and that includes a nice course calendar. We'll go there in a minute, but that's going to be your stop for all of these videos and for knowing what topics we're going to cover each week and things like that. The structure of the course, we'll talk more about that later, but the lectures that would normally be in a big lecture hall on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are going to be delivered asynchronously, like I said, through videos like this. Now, there is still a calendar. There will be a Monday video, a Wednesday video, and a Friday video, and I strongly encourage you to stay on a schedule like that to make sure that you're keeping up. The discussion sections, these will be small group breakout classes with teaching assistants. These are still going to be in person like normal on Tuesdays and Thursdays. More on that later. I will have office hours like normal with a university course. And in addition, we have something called the Calculus Help Desk. That's usually a desk staffed by teaching assistants for many hours of the day, not just our teaching assistants, but lots of teaching assistants, that you can just stop by at any time and ask questions. We're still trying to figure out the details on where it's going to be and how it's going to be a mix of virtual and in-person, so we'll make sure that we get you that information as soon as we have it. And I'll talk more about office hours later as well. We're going to have 3 awesome teaching assistants for this class, Jesse, Eric, and Doogie. So there are 9 different discussion sections. That means all 150 of you are split into 9 groups, and each of you will have one of these teaching assistants for the entire semester. You'll see them in your discussion sections on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as well as they'll have office hours and be at the Calculus Help Desk too. Okay, so I've mentioned a little bit about the course structure here, but I'll go into a little bit more detail. So lectures will be posted in video form online, and they had to be this asynchronous format because of scheduling issues. The registrar was not able to find us a time that we could meet synchronously over Microsoft Teams or something all at the same time. So personally, I would much rather be teaching in person. I think most faculty members would. That's just what we enjoy. Or being able to talk to you in person synchronously, but at the moment this is the best that the registrar can offer us. So it's going to be a little strange, especially early on probably for you guys doing an asynchronous course. Certainly it's strange for me sitting here just talking into my webcam recording videos, but I think after a couple weeks we'll get in the flow of things. And on top of that, like I said, I'll mention more about this later, but there will always be office hours, which should give us a chance to get to know each other on Microsoft Teams chat. So like I say here, it's easy to fall behind in an online course, especially an asynchronous one. So I worked really hard over the summer to try to think of a course design that would encourage you and kind of force you to stay on schedule, to try to prevent that from happening. And later in the syllabus, I wrote a list of tips that I think will help you succeed in this course. Now, before we go on to other details, I just want to point out that this is going to be probably a weird semester in a lot of ways. For starters, this course being asynchronous is new to me and probably new to you, at least partially new to you. And there may be, for many of you, some kind of external factor that pops up that prevents you from doing your classwork on a normal schedule, maybe you have to quarantine, or maybe you have to take care of a family member. A lot of stuff can happen this semester. The key is that you should let me know as soon as possible if you're having any issues like that. If you come to me 3 weeks later and say, oh, I'm sorry, I missed these 3 weeks of assignments, we can still maybe work on something, but it's going to be harder for you to catch up. So I expect you and I encourage you to let me know by email or in office hours as soon as possible when something's getting in the way of your work, and we will work together to figure out a way to make sure that you can keep up. On the other hand, I'm going to be emailing you whenever there's important course information, because we won't have a big lecture where I can stand up and just say it to you. And so I expect you to be checking your email pretty regularly and make sure that you're not missing that information. Now, the help desk, I talked about this a little bit already. We're figuring out if we can have an in-person part to it, and if so, where it will be. And we will almost certainly have a virtual part as well. So I'll let you know when we have that figured out. But between the calculus help desk and office hours, you'll have many, many hours a week where you can come to either me or your TAs to get help with the material. Now, we can help you with anything. We can help you with your homework problems. We can help you with other problems in the textbook. If there's something in a lecture video that confused you, we can help you with that too. And I want to really emphasize, especially for the freshmen in the class who this might be one of their first university courses, you do not need an appointment for office hours. These are hours that you can just drop in at any point in time, introduce yourself to me. I'd really love a chance to get to meet you, because right now I'm just talking into my webcam. So I say all that here, and there's a video here that I'd like you to watch. It's kind of a funny little video with some information about office hours. On to the textbook. So we're using a textbook called Calculus, Single and Multivariable, and I guess this is going to be backward for you. I'm still trying to figure out this technology, so bear with me. But it's got this red cover here, and we're using the 7th edition. Now, one of the components of the course will be an online homework system called Wiley Plus that comes with the textbook bundles. So if you're just trying to buy the book itself used, you might not have the access code. So you want to make sure that you get the access code when you get the textbook. And both of the bundles that are on Marquette's textbook page, bookmark, do come with that access code. So the textbook that we're using in this course is pretty good. They have a lot of good examples. They have a lot of great exercises. We are going to be using it pretty heavily, both in the lectures as well as with homework problems. So I really encourage that you get a copy. Another good thing is that if you end up taking Calc 2 after this, or Calc 3 or differential equations, any one of those 4 courses in addition, or this one plus those 3 others, they will use the same textbook, so you don't need to buy a textbook again, and they plan on using at least the same homework system, so you won't need to buy another Wiley Plus access code. So the goal is that even though it is a little bit expensive right now, depending on how many of those courses you take, it can last you multiple courses. Okay, calculators. In this course, you will not need to buy a graphing calculator of any kind, and we won't use them. What you may need is a simple, what's called a scientific calculator that lets you do arithmetic. So the obvious things like adding and subtracting, as well as taking square roots and powers. You can normally buy one of these for pretty cheap. All of your smartphones probably have an app that can do it, and also Google can do it if you just type it in the search bar, and other websites like Wolfram Alpha. You certainly won't need a calculator on any exams that you take in class, so you won't be allowed to have one there. But a lot of the problems in the book and some of the problems on the online Wiley Plus homework system do require a little bit of arithmetic at the end. You might need to divide or multiply or square something. So you will want to make sure you have some way to do that, but you don't need to buy one of the very expensive fancy graphing calculators. Okay, course websites. Now, the information for the course is in a couple of different places. The main website that has all of the major information is the one that I linked to at the top of the syllabus. And I will go to that in this video in a little bit and show you what it looks like and where some of the important information is. The other websites that we'll use are D2L. This is Marquette's main course management system. You're going to use D2L mostly for keeping track of your grades. So grades will be entered on D2L. If we reach a point in the semester where we have to move to an all online format, D2L will also be where you take your exams and submit them. The other piece of software we'll use is a little bit new to Marquette. It's called Microsoft Teams. We're not going to use it for much, but what it's very nice for is its chat room features. So you can go, so that we have a main Microsoft Teams that if you go into Microsoft Teams, you should see our Math 1450 section there. And it's got a bunch of channels where you can go and chat. So I really encourage you to pop in and just maybe introduce yourself. Once again, I'm just talking to the webcam, so it'd be nice to meet you a little bit. But you can also use this if you maybe don't know anybody else in the class and you're looking for a study group. So you can post, hey, I'm looking for a couple people to study with, anybody interested? Also, if you have questions like, hey, you know, I'm getting this error message on Wiley Plus. Did anybody else get this or know how to fix it? That's a great way to maybe get some fast help from another student. Of course, you can always email me if you get stuck, but I encourage you to try to use the chat rooms too. And I mentioned a little bit about discussion sections already. So these will be led by your teaching assistant, one of the 3 TAs that I mentioned at the beginning. The main purpose of the discussion sections is to get help on the lecture material and the homework. So a normal Tuesday discussion section will involve you all coming in and asking, hopefully you brought with you any questions you have. So that's one of the expectations that I have for you, is that you'll come to the discussion section with any questions on the homework, either the Wiley Plus or any questions from the textbook that you got stuck on, and you ask them for your TA. And your TA is not just going to give you the answer, but they're going to walk you through the steps and they're going to help you understand. On Thursdays, the discussion section will be split basically half and half. It will start with your TA answering questions, and at the end, we will take a mini exam. So I'll talk more about this in a little bit. But the course, because of this weird nature, because it's asynchronous, and because I want to make sure that you're kind of staying kept up with the material, we're not going to have any giant big exams like you might be used to. Instead, we're going to have a mini exam each week in the discussion section. I promise we'll talk more about that later. That might sound a little bit scary at first, a mini exam every week, but it's designed to specifically to not be scary, so don't worry about that. Okay, moving on. I wrote here a couple of tips I have for how I think you can succeed in this course. So let me run through these pretty quickly. And if at any point in the course you feel like you're falling behind or you just want some study tips, always feel free to reach out to me, email, office hours, anything like that, and I'm more than happy to help. Okay, so my first, number one, most important recommendation, especially for an asynchronous course like this, is that you want to stay on schedule. So even though we don't have a normal Monday, Wednesday, Friday lecture in person, I'm going to be posting these videos as a Monday lecture, a Wednesday lecture, Friday lecture, and so on. So there won't just be some big list of videos that you're expected to watch at some point in the semester. We're really going to try to follow a schedule. The Wiley Plus homework assignments, as well as the mini exams, are at these regular intervals, once a week, to try to keep you on a normal pace and not let you fall too far behind. So we won't have those in-person lectures, but try to stick to the schedule I'm setting. Really try not to leave your homework assignments for the day they're due. So you'll have a week's worth of videos being all in one homework assignment. Don't try to do that just the day of. When you watch Monday's videos, try to do the Monday questions, and then watch Wednesday's videos and do the Wednesday questions, and so on. Now, what should you do when you're watching the videos? It's a little bit tempting to just watch the videos and then be done. What I encourage you to do is to watch the videos and take some kind of notes on your own. Now, don't just copy what I wrote word for word, because that doesn't really help you much, and you will always have the videos to refer back to, but try to summarize the information on your own. Maybe one way that you could do that would be to watch a couple of minutes maybe, and then pause the video and try to summarize what you just saw. There is a lot of research that shows that this kind of note-taking, not just copying, but kind of paraphrasing and summarizing, really helps you retain the material a lot better. Do the written textbook problems, even though they won't be collected. So there will be 2 different types of homework. There will be the Wiley Plus online homework. These questions are basically out of the textbook, but you're doing them online and they're automatically graded. So those will be graded. But I'm also going to assign in each section that we do a bunch of other problems from the textbook that I think are most important for you to understand the material. Now, these are optional in the sense that they're not going to be collected or graded, but you should really think about them as required, because they are the problems that I've really decided you really need to do to understand the material. So if you just do the online graded homework, you're not going to understand the material well enough to do well in the mini exams. This other homework, even though it's not graded, you should really think of as required. If you get stuck on these, you should bring them to office hours or the calculus help desk or the discussion sections. That's what they're there for. And like I say here, you're encouraged to work in groups on these problems. I really encourage you to have some study groups and have some classmates that you can bounce ideas off of. I think that's really the best way to learn math. What's important is that when you're doing the Wiley Plus, that you should be doing on your own. You can discuss if you're stuck, but you should not be all sitting together doing it. That would be considered cheating. But it's definitely acceptable to discuss the ideas with your classmates, and especially on these written, non-graded problems, I really encourage you to work together. Okay, the next tip I've mentioned a lot already. You should try to make as much use of office hours as you can in the calculus help desk. A lot of times office hours, there will be nobody there. And so if that's the case, then you can essentially get free one-on-one tutoring with the person that writes the exams or with one of the TAs. So it's really a great use of your time. This one I've kind of said too. I recommend you find a good study group if you can. And it's okay if that changes throughout the semester, obviously. But if you, especially with an asynchronous course, if you're not talking to any of your classmates, it can feel really isolating, especially in this kind of weird semester that we're in. So try to have a network of people you know in the course. I think it will help a lot. And I want to reiterate this. I said it before, but there's a reason I wrote it here again. If something's come up in your life and you're falling behind, reach out to me as soon as possible and we can find a way to make it work. Okay, the next sections are just the kind of boilerplate language about the core. This course fulfills the mathematical reasoning requirement for the old Marquette core. Most of you are probably on the new core, and this satisfies the discovery tier. So you can read that on your own. That just kind of says how this course fits into the core. Okay, now the big part, assessment. So this is what you all want to know, is how am I going to get graded, and what will I get graded on, and how will I get a final letter grade? We've got three basic components in this course. We've got the online homework, that's the Wiley Plus. We've got mini exams that I'll talk about. Those will be worth in total 50%. We've got the final exam, which will be worth 15%. So the first thing that you might notice is the online homework is a very, very high percentage compared to what's normally done in this course. The reason I've decided to count the online homework, which usually you should be able to get full credit or close to full credit on, the reason I want it to count as such a high percentage is that I want you to really spend the time and effort to do it well and to make sure that you understand it. And I know that it can take a lot of time to do. So I'm kind of giving you all this credit for it, this 35%, because I want that to convey to you how much I value that you are spending the time it takes to do the online homework. And you should really think about this 35% as kind of giving you credit for the written homework too, even though it's not going to be collected or graded. You should think about that 35% as how much effort I think that you should spend in all of the homework together. The mini exams, these are the ones that you're going to take each Thursday in a discussion section. In total, they will account for 50%. And the final exam, like I said, is 15%. Now, you might notice if you look on checkmark that we don't have a final exam time scheduled yet. That's because we're an asynchronous course and we don't have a normal lecture time. Therefore, we don't have a default final exam time. So we are working with the registrar to get that figured out, and we'll let you know when the final exam is as soon as we figure it out. Okay, so let's go over each of these three things in some detail. The first is the Wiley Plus online system. So in order to get onto the Wiley Plus system, you need an access code that will come with your textbook bundle. You should find information about Wiley Plus posted on our course page. It's not there at the moment that I'm recording this video, but it will be there either when this video is posted or within the first week. So I'll make sure to email you and let you know how to join our course page. The answers are automatically graded by the system. It's usually a pretty good system. If you give the same answer but with kind of a different arithmetic that gets you to the same thing, it will usually know. So for example, if the answer is 4 pi and you put 2 times 2 pi, it will usually know that that's the same and mark it correctly, which is great. But it can take sometimes a little practice to figure out the right way to format your answers. There will be a practice assignment I mentioned that down here, 2-point practice assignment due on Wednesday, September 9th, which should give you some practice learning how to format your answers. And again, if you get stuck, if you can't figure it out, you can always ask me or your TAs. So in total, there's going to be 11 Wiley Plus assignments. That's basically 1 per week starting on September 9th. Each of those 11 assignments is worth 18 points. And so in total, when you have 11 assignments at 18 points each, that's 198, plus the 2 for practice, that will be due the same day as the first assignment. That means a total of 200 possible points on Wiley Plus. Now, when I actually calculate your Wiley Plus grade in the system, it's not going to be out of 200. It's going to be out of a smaller number. It's going to be out of 175. So that kind of gives you a bunch of leeway, 25 kind of bonus points of leeway, and that will account for any technical issues, like if you're having issues entering things incorrectly, or if there's some kind of technology issue. It's going to account for the fact that we're not going to accept any late assignments and things like that. So we're not going to accept late assignments, but in exchange, we're giving you these 25 points of leeway. Now, if there's some technical issue where Wiley Plus goes down 5 minutes before the deadline, that's kind of on you. So we expect you to have it done by the time it's due, and you should keep in mind that sometimes there are glitches with either your internet or Wiley Plus or whatever. So try to have as much of the assignment done early as you can, and once again, since we're not going to reopen assignments in the case of those kind of issues, we are giving you these 25 extra points of leeway. So that's kind of the trade-off there. So what this means, having a total of 200, but only counting it out of 175, is, for example, if at the end of the semester you earned 180 out of those 200, that counts as 100%. There's not going to be a bonus. It's not like you'll have 103% or anything, but you had more than 175, and so that's 100%. If you earned 150 out of the 200, that's not 75%, 150 out of 200, it's 150 out of 175, so an 85.7%. So you can think about this as an automatic bonus points or automatic curve to give you that extra catch-up points on Wiley Plus to deal with any technical issues. A couple tips here in case you run into any issues. If it's not working, the number one tip is to always try a different browser. Try Chrome or try Firefox or something else, or try clearing your browser cache. Sometimes that helps. What probably catches up a lot of students the first time that they try an assignment is making sure that you're matching the notation that they use. So, for example, you might have problems where you need to use the number pi, and one common mistake would be accidentally using the uppercase Greek letter pi instead of the lowercase Greek letter pi. Or, for example, if you have some function that uses the variable t, and you need to answer in the variable t, and instead you accidentally use the variable x, it might mark you wrong. So you need to make sure that you're matching the variables that they use. Or if you maybe misplace your parentheses by accident, and so your order of operations is wrong. These are all some common errors that at first you might think, well, what do you mean? This is obviously correct. Why isn't it accepting it? But check those couple of things and you might figure it out. Last tip for now, unless the problem says otherwise, you should assume it wants an exact answer. So you would say something like log of 2 instead of 0 point whatever the log of 2 is. So don't give numerical answers unless it says to. Use exact answers like 1/3, not 0.33. So that's Wiley Plus. That's 35% of your grade. Next up is the mini exams. So what I needed was a way to try to keep you on track because it's an asynchronous course. But also normally exams would be in our Monday, Wednesday, Friday lectures. And we don't, it's not just that we're online, it's that we don't even have a scheduled lecture time. So we don't have a time that I could schedule the exams for. So to solve this problem, instead we're going to have a mini exam in each of your Thursday discussion sections. I'll show you the course calendar in a minute so you can kind of see what that means. But there's going to be 11 of them. I'm going to drop the lowest score, so only 10 scores will count, and in total those will be 50% of your grade. So 50 divided by 10 is 5. That means each mini exam is going to be 5% of your grade. These are going to be designed to take about 25 to 30 minutes, so shorter than a normal 50-minute exam. But you should expect the difficulty level to be about the same because they are really exams. They're not easier quizzes, they're exams. So even though the difficulty level is the same, what you should keep in mind is that they cover much less material. So they're only going to cover the week of material before them. And so even though they're going to be exam difficulty, you have a much smaller amount of material to study for. So my goal is to have these designed so that if you're keeping up with the course, you're watching the videos, you're doing the homework, you're doing the written homework, you should be able to tackle these mini exams without major cram sessions before each of them. That's my goal. I don't want you to have like one full exam every week. That would be crazy. I want you to have an exam that tests, are you keeping on track with the course? So that may sound a little scary, but I promise that you shouldn't be scared. Each one is going to be out of 25 points. And like I said, we're going to drop the lowest, so that will be 250 points total for the mini exams. Lastly, the final exam. This is going to be sometime after Thanksgiving break. It's going to be online. I just don't know the time yet, and it will be worth 75 points. I also mentioned before the written homework. So this is not collected and not graded, but it is a really important part of the course. You should think about it as required in order to do well. And here is the practice regimen that I have found always works well for students. You can use any system you like, of course, but this, I think, really helps. Sit down and try to solve the problems that I've assigned, and at first, try to do them without your book and without your notes. Pretend like you're sitting in an exam and you don't have those things. And even if you don't know what to do, think about it for a minute or two. It's really tempting to just say, okay, let me open the back of the book. But really just sit there and try to think about it. If you can't solve it, that's totally fine. That's the point of practice. If you can't solve it, then look at your notes or the book or the solution, figure out how to do it. But here's the key. It's easy to look at a solution and say, oh, that makes sense. Okay, now I know how to do it, and move on. But just because you read the solution and understand it doesn't mean that you'll be able to do it again if you see it on one of the mini exams. So if you had to look at your notes or the book or the solution, make a mark next to the question, keep a log of the ones that you had to do that for, and wait a day or so you forget the answer. And then come back and try it again. And maybe then you can do it without the book. That's great. But if you need the book again, that's fine. Just make a note of it again and come back. And keep coming back to the problem until you can do it without the book. And if you do that with all the problems, you're going to be in really great shape for the mini exams. The analogy that I always use, and I'll probably mention this in a bunch of the videos, is that learning how to do math is like learning to shoot free throws. If you wanted to learn how to shoot free throws really well, you would not just go on YouTube and watch a bunch of videos of people shooting free throws and then say, okay, I'm ready for my free throw exam. I mean, you just intuitively know that that doesn't make sense. That would be a good first step maybe, is watching the YouTube videos to learn about form and technique and stuff. But then you would go out to your driveway and you would try to shoot a bunch of free throws. And you would miss the first bunch of them. That's this part about not being able to solve the problem and looking at your notes or the book. But eventually with enough practice, then you'll be able to make the free throws. So same thing here. Watching the video lectures is the important first step. And then trying the written homework is important. And looking at the solutions, if you can't do them, is important. But then you really have to come back and keep trying until you can get them right. That's the key. Okay, so how is your grade computed? Well, there's a total of 500 points, a nice round number. That's 175 from Wiley Plus, 250 from the mini exams, and 75 from the final exam. So your number of points will correspond directly to a letter grade. So for example, if you earn at least 465 points, that's 93%, that corresponds to an A. And so on down the list. So pretty simple, I hope. Okay, let me stop with the syllabus for a second, and I want to show you the course website now that we've talked about all these different assignments. So let me see if I can figure out how to go in Safari here. Okay, this is the course website listed on the top of the syllabus. You'll see there is also the website for my other course, so you're going to want to make sure that you're on Math 1450. It's got some basic info here. The office hours are to be determined, but as soon as we figure that out, that and the calculus help desk hours will be on here. And so you'll see some information isn't on here yet because I'm still filling it out and I'm recording this video a little bit early, but by the time classes start, a lot of it will be. Okay, let me go down to what I think is the most important part, which is the daily calendar. This is where you're going to find links to videos, and they're not there yet because I'm currently recording the videos, But if you go there probably now, and you go down to where it says syllabus right here, I guess I can't point to this, that's a shame, but if you go down to syllabus, you'll see this video. And you'll see videos for probably the first week by the time you look at this. So this is going to tell you for each day what sections of the textbook and what videos you should be watching. So for example, Wednesday, August 26th, maybe I can highlight this. So on this first row here, you'll see section 1.1. That is functions and change. So if you go there, you can watch the videos on it. You'll see Thursday, you have a discussion right here. And then Friday, you have another lecture and some videos that will be there. Moving on to week 2, you'll see that on Thursday, September 3rd, you have your first mini exam. Now, this is important. This is a practice mini exam. This will not be graded, well, we'll grade it, but it won't count for anything. This is just to give you a feeling of what the mini exams will feel like. So you'll do it in class, we'll collect it, we'll grade it, we'll return it, but it won't count at all. It's not the one that's dropped, it's exam 0. There will be 11 after this one. Starting on week 3 is where you have your first Wiley assignment due and your first mini exam. So let's take a look at this. Here's what a normal week will look like. Normally on Monday you'll have a lecture, although on this day it's Labor Day, so we won't have a lecture. And a normal week on a Tuesday discussion section, it will just be all questions. Now your TA may do some extra review to help out, but you should come prepared with any questions you have and your TA will answer them for you. On Wednesday of a normal week, you'll have a Wiley Plus assignment due. So on this day, on Wednesday, September 9th, let me make that go away. On Wednesday, September 9th, you'll have Wiley Plus Homework 1 due. It's going to cover everything that we've done up to that point. So it will cover a little bit more than normal because we didn't have a Wiley Plus assignment on this week 2 here. So that's going to be due sometime in the evening. Now what that means is that you have all of this Tuesday discussion to ask your TA about these Wiley Plus questions. So Tuesday you get to ask, Wednesday the homework is due, and then Thursday you have a mini exam on the same material. So that's always how this is going to work, is that you'll have a mini exam on Thursday covering the same material as your Wiley Plus assignment on Wednesday. That's on purpose because we want the assignment to help you practice and then you have the exam. Now let me show you kind of a more normal week where we don't have a day off in the middle. Let's go to week 5 here. Let me zoom in a little. So week 5, you have your third Wiley homework due. It covers material from sections 1.9, 2.1, and 2.2. So look where those are. That is Wednesday of the week before, and Friday of the week before, and Monday. Obviously, that Wiley on September 23rd is not going to include the material from September 23rd. That wouldn't give you enough time to do it. So Wednesday's Wiley Plus homework will cover the previous Wednesday, Friday, and then the Monday of that current week. And the mini exam will cover the same material. So the mini exam on Thursday will not cover the most recent Wednesday material, but the past Wednesday. I think that's enough balance that it's covering recent material, so you haven't forgotten it, but we're not covering material that you just learned, and that would be a little unfair because you wouldn't have time to practice it. So this page already has the calendar for the entire semester laid out. It's got all of the mini exams, all of the Wiley Plus, all the way up to the last one here. I'll just point out one other thing on this page before we go back to the syllabus and wrap it up. I know this has been a kind of long video, but it's a bit of a complicated course, especially in a semester that's weird like this, so I want to make sure you have all the information available. One other thing I wanted to point out is that on the same day that you have this first Wiley Plus homework due, you also have a practice Wiley homework 0 due. That's the practice assignment worth 2 points, so very small. It will just be a couple questions, and you won't have to do any math. It will say something like, try to enter this expression in the box. So it's going to give you a little bit of practice learning how to input the right symbols. I recommend that you do that way before September 9th. Do it as soon as you have access to the Wiley Plus system because you'll make sure that you don't have any access issues. You'll make sure that you know how to do the homework, and then I can make sure on my end that I'm seeing your grade and that it's there. So it will be due by September 9th, but I recommend that you do it as soon as possible. Okay, almost done here. Going back to the syllabus, we'll just talk about a couple other classroom policies. These are pretty standard things, but I want to make sure I talk about them. If you think that an assignment has been scored incorrectly, meaning that we misunderstood your work or something like that, you have to bring it to us, to your TA, within 1 week of having it passed back. Now, if you've got like a holiday break in between, it might be like flexible by a day or so, but you basically have 1 week to bring it to our attention. Your TA will take it and read it very carefully and regrade it if necessary and give it back to you. This is so we don't end up at the end of the semester and you bring me this big stack of things that you think need to be regraded. So that wouldn't be fair to us. So you have 1 week to review your grade and see if you have any issues. Classroom conduct. Well, for the lectures, we don't have a classroom, unfortunately. It's just me and the webcam here. But in your discussion sections, you will have a small group of people. I think right now there are like 15 to maybe 20 people. I think it's really important, especially in small classrooms, to be interactive. So if your TA asks a question, you should volunteer an answer. Even if you're not sure your answer is right, just raise your hand and try to give an answer. And in fact, my favorite answers are wrong answers, because if your answer is wrong, that means that I now understand where you're confused. And that means that I can help you and go over that a little bit more. So there's no shame in wrong answers. Wrong answers are great. And the more you interact with your TA and with your other classmates, the more fun your discussion sections are going to be. In your discussion sections, we would really appreciate if you try to keep your phone away. And when you're watching the videos, try to keep your phone away too. If you have to pause, of course, that's fine. You can pause these videos. But I've talked to a lot of students who tell me that they might see me or the TA saying something they know, like, okay, I know what the slope of a line is. So you look at your phone and you get distracted, and then you tune back in a minute later and you realize, whoa, he's doing something I haven't seen before, and you're kind of lost. So it's really tempting, but try to resist the urge to get distracted, especially in your discussion sections. Returned papers. When we return your scores on the mini exams, it is your responsibility to hang on to those. If something happens at the end of the semester and I've made an error typing in your grade, maybe I typed in your grade as a 5 instead of a 25, if you don't have that graded paper that proves you got a 25, I can't do anything about it. So it's your responsibility to save all of your graded papers in case there's an issue at the end of the semester. This is different from we misunderstood. This is just talking about if I enter your grades incorrectly on D2L by accident. I already mentioned my homework collaboration policy. Basically, I really want to encourage you to work together. I think working together is the best way to learn mathematics. The key, though, is that when you're actually sitting down to do the Wiley Plus, you need to be able to do it on your own. You can't have somebody doing it for you. If you have somebody do your homework for you, well, number one, that's cheating, so please don't do it. But also, it's just going to show in your mini exams. So really, it's for your own good to work together, but then make sure that you know how to do your problems on your own at the end. So here we have a statement from Marquette about COVID-19. I'm basically going to summarize it to say, number one, this is going to be a very weird semester in a lot of ways, and I want to help you however I can. So if something's happening, let me know. And Marquette is requiring that you wear face masks in the classroom. Obviously, when we're watching the video, that's not an issue. But when you're in your discussion sections, it is required that you wear a face mask. This is to keep you safe and to keep your classmates safe and to keep the TAs safe. And your TAs will ask you to leave the room if you don't wear a face mask. So please do us all a favor. Let's make that not an issue. Okay, the rest here is the kind of thing that you see on all syllabi. If you have accommodations through the Office of Disability Services, bring that to the attention of your TAs and bring it to the attention of me as soon as possible so we can make any accommodations that you might need. And the excused absence policy here is just the typical Marquette one. Okay, so that's the syllabus. I really appreciate that you watched all the way through. I know this has been a little bit long, but the course, I keep saying this, it's going to be a little strange for all of us. I promise we're going to get through it as long as you make sure that you stay on track, you stay in constant communication with me and your TAs. I think we're going to do just fine. If you have any questions about the syllabus, please feel free to ask your TAs. You have your first discussion section on Tuesday, August 27th. That's the second day of classes, so that's a great chance to ask questions. Or you can always email me, or you can post on the Microsoft Teams chat room, or you can come to office hours when we have those assigned. Lots of different options. So if you have questions, just try to find us.